Hello everyone and welcome to the stream. I am Junchan and I did it. I think I finally solved my multi-screen, multi-GPU NixOS setup. And so I'm going to do a short one talking about how I did that and then cut so that I can upload it to YouTube for posterity and others who might be looking to have the same solution, and then carry on with the regular program with some pure script. So what was the problem? Well, the problem is that I have two PCI cards, one Nvidia and the other a AMD card, a 270X, and there's also an onboard VGA, an onboard GPU as well, or video card on the motherboard I'm using, but we're not going to focus on that today. And I was getting trouble basically having a setup where I could have both cards working using the Nvidia driver, so the non-free driver, because I want to be able to do CUDA at least for a while until I switch to Vulkan, and bonus points to having Vulkan also set up. And well, most of the documentation that's out there for Nvidia on NixOS is mostly targeted at laptops, but in fact it might be a little bit misleading. But what's referred to as NVIDIA Prime and offloading, offload mode, is also valid for graphics card in a desktop computer. However, the way that is set up is because it's focused on NVIDIA.nix. Yeah. Oh, I got this another window. Yeah, because it's focused on laptops, usually the most common setup is an NVIDIA discrete card and an Intel onboard GPU. That's what most laptops have these days. And well, it doesn't really fit the bill because we have an Nvidia card and a AMD card. So it's a bit tricky because I'm obviously learning still Nix and NixOS at the same time. Plus, I'm actually not familiar at all with X configuration. I've been using macOS for a long time, and when I use Linux at work, it's for usually headless servers. I don't do graphics. So X server has been kind of away from my view, and so I had quite a bit to learn to try and get to solve the issue. Obviously, the driver that is chosen for X needs to also be loaded in the kernel, and there's this added issue of free and non-free drivers, and so all of this makes it for quite a challenge. It took me quite a while to figure out this configuration, so I'm quite happy that I finally get it working. So I am using a flakes-based configuration. I'll show you quickly how I'm doing that. I use I have a Nix package that's pinned to 2009. I also source the unstable Nix packages, and I use Home Manager, but we don't care about this right now. I have to allow unfree for the Nvidia package, and I mount this as I mount unstable as an overlay with the unfree configuration. Then I mount this overlay so that it becomes available on packages.unstable. And and then I load my configuration.nix and do some home manager things. But as I said, the home manager things are unimportant at this point. And if you don't use flakes, well, then you're just using configuration.nix and it will look exactly like this. So what am I doing here? Well, one of the things is that I have to use kernel 419. I think it's the default one. I do use the unstable branch for it just in case. It probably works with the stable version. I tried more recent kernel versions, but most of these don't work. It seems like offloading doesn't work with more recent kernel versions. I'll probably try this again, but I just solved the issue basically 10 minutes ago, so I haven't had tried to sort of expand on that that's current solution. I also tried things with kernel parameters for the AMD GPU driver, because I thought maybe the more recent driver for AMD would work, but actually I had to use Radeon. And so I'm actually loading the kernel, the Radeon and Nvidia modules as kernel module during UnitRD, which allows me to actually have a pretty console graphics if I don't boot with X, which was quite useful for troubleshooting and just getting a sense of whether I was on the right track or not. Didn't have to blacklist the Nouveau kernel module because that's done automatically if you load Nvidia. I should say that actually, and I say this at the beginning, right, that I was trying to make sure that I could use the Nvidia driver because I want to try CUDA and then move on to Vulkan. But unfortunately, Vulkan doesn't work on the Nouveau driver, but that's in the works. So it should be possible in the future, maybe this year. It's been announced a few times already in the past years, but to use Vulkan on Nouveau and then have basically everything open, which would be the ideal situation here. But I think everyone kind of dislikes Nvidia for what they're doing with the drivers. But it seems though that they have been contributing to Nouveau and contributing some fairly new stuff, like I think OpenCL. So they seem to be giving back to the community. So it's not all bad. Right, so I don't have to blacklist this explicitly, and have to enable X server using GDM right now and GNOME 3. And so I'm not sure whether this is useful, but I do have this enabled: OpenGL, DRI support, and DRI support 32 bits. I'm also loading extra packages because I want Vulkan to work. I think it doesn't quite work at this point, but we're close. And here's the important part. I've tried quite a lot to make this work for mode setting, because mode setting was working for most things. It was actually, especially if you just use mode setting, then it would find the right drivers and it would work. But then I couldn't load the Nvidia tooling, and tools like Nvidia SMI wouldn't work, and then I couldn't also load CUDA drivers and so on, or at least I couldn't find how to do that. And that's really what unlocked it, is that for a while I was trying with both mode settings and Radeon and Nvidia with mode setting enabled, but that didn't work. I had to disable mode setting here. So that turned out to be the thing that unlocked me after I tried quite a few things. But the other thing that's really important is that I did enable offload and Nvidia, and I configured bus ID and for Nvidia and AMD GPU. But in fact, I think I'm not using any of that. We could actually take a look at how what the impact of loading is really on the configuration here. I think it's only impacting what goes into X servers, the XOR config. And so the thing that is also make it work is that I'm using a custom-made X server configuration. And that was something that came up on some threads in GitHub. People mention, oh, there's actually an important thread there for this, and I should probably contribute back to it. What's going on here? My keyboard. NixOS multi-GPU multi-head. That's the issue. And here it's slightly different configuration, but similar. I mean, a more advanced Nix user than me, for sure, explaining that they had to use a custom X server configuration, and I think proposing some possible driver agnostic solution, more robust multi-GPU configuration that would work. So there follows a discussion about maybe trying to define a syntax for such a configurable multi-head, multi-GPU X server conf, but in the end it died down on January there. But for a while I did try with this, but I didn't have exactly the right config. And so what it turned out to be the right config is something where I use, so I probably would need to bisect a bit more detail to know exactly what works here, but I think the key is a Nvidia device with the driver Nvidia and explicit bus ID, and a Radeon device with the Radeon driver and an explicit bus ID. And you can deduce these bus IDs by looking at the PCI, LSPCI results. You see 02 for the Nvidia, and so 200 becomes the address for that, and 8100 for the AMD card, and 8100 becomes the bus ID for that for the Radeon card. And so a mix of having these devices defined and then having the monitor defined. And I think for this, this is not completely configured yet. I had to do a trick which I've learned while trying to troubleshoot. Again, I used the arandr. Well, actually, I use more than that. If you use xrandr list providers, you see that it correctly recognizes two providers, provider 0 with the name Nvidia 0, and a provider 1 with the name Pitcairn. I'm not sure where that comes from, but that's the AMD, or rather the Radeon driver. And I did run then the something that you'll find in a lot of non-NixOS based configuration tools and or instructions, like the Arch Linux documentation for multi-head, multi-GPU. That's really good. Arch and GPU, or let's see, Arch Nvidia multi-head. Okay. There you go. That was very useful to understand the basics of the configuration, either interactively through xrandr or with the section in the configuration, Nix configuration. Something that I use quite a bit as well to try and understand what was going on is to take a look at the Display Manager service. And in the Display Manager service, the generated xserver.conf is listed here. So if I look at it, then that allowed me to basically find which aspect would work or not. And you can see that this is the one that I was just showing you earlier. And I based some of the things, like for instance, I didn't have XR method, and I also didn't use the bus ID at some point, and so all of this didn't work until now. But I think I still have to troubleshoot just a bit, because I think I'm probably not using the right monitor names here. So it seems like when I did the xrandar, I needed to, I'm not sure now, but I think I did this 1010. Actually, I think I crashed something right now. What did I crash? Okay, OBS seems to still be going. Okay, good. I think at least or at least my, I didn't crash anything, but my Firefox got a bit confused here. So one of these two is failing, and I think it's this one specifically. But it seems like it's not needed. This actually generates also something that in the journal is important to take a look at. It generates an error. I can't see the error right now. I think because I restarted GNOME, there's a bunch of errors there. Let's see. The error was something like no space left for device. There we go. Fail to look up gem object for mapping 6 and 7, and no space left on device. So that kept popping up when I was trying to do either xrandar and the offload configuration, or yeah, I think that's mostly how it popped up. It might have been popping up also when I was doing arandar, which is the graphical layout tool, and I had to use this to begin the stream and to make things work. The order of operation was that the set provider output source actually allowed to enable the screen in the outputs here. Otherwise, I didn't have the output available. Doing set provider output source made the source appear, and then I laid them out and click on the checkbox, and that solved the issue. So I think that now I'm going to be able to actually, I want to continue taking a look at this because I think you'll see that in my configuration, I already have this opened. I'm using the wrong name for the screens. Since I've been shuffling the drivers, and I think the order in which it loads matters in terms of which IDs get assigned, especially if there's duplicate names. So in the end, it looks like my Radeon card. It looks like actually what happened, and this happened. It was the first time I think this happened before. Is that boot occurred on the Radeon card, and all the console messages were on the Radeon card. But as soon as X started, my primary driver immediately became the Nvidia card. And so I think that's because it's listed first in the screens here. I know, because it has primary true for this well, oh yeah, because I think HDMI 0 wasn't found because it's HDMI 1.0, and so it must have chosen the first one listed in the list instead of choosing the one that I requested as primary. So I think I'm going to make the change here right now, and we'll rebuild, but we won't we won't restart X. No, maybe I will restart X just to send just to finish the stream. And here we see the display port is number 4. Okay, so I think I'm going to have to also change the identifier here and change the identifier here. To be honest, I haven't completely understood exactly what does what here, but I think this should work. And I'm actually not using this, what looks like an aliasing option here. I've commented that out a while back. Okay, so there's that's basically it. That's how it worked, and there's still something that I'd like to improve, which is that my zooming levels. A nice thing is that, as you could see at the beginning, the display properly appears in the GNOME settings here, and so I can actually set them up and probably also use this inbuilt tool for layout rather than this arandr. But one thing is that it seems like scaling can't be done independently on the 2 monitors. So it might be that I need to do something specific in the xconfig to allow that to occur. And so I'll show the last thing. It's I do have Vulkan tools installed, and I have therefore access to the Vulkan info tool, but this I think doesn't. It works! Haha! Amazing. So, that's fantastic. So Vulkan works, and well, Nvidia SMI also works. So I know I'm going to be able to do CUDA as well. So everything's working good. Thank you so much for following, and yeah, I'll see you later for maybe more NixOS adventures, and in a second for some pure script. And I will save my, I'll rebuild my configuration, and I will sign off with a display manager restart, hoping that everything doesn't crash and comes back exactly how I left it, maybe with now my Radeon connected monitor, the primary, since that's what I asked for. And also both monitors properly configured and laid out. That would be the ideal. All right, so thanks so much, and I'll see